Hello and welcome to our 14th edition of FSI Fridays. I'm Edwin, live in Boston, joined by Joe Hansen in Charlotte. Hey, Joe Hansen, happy Friday. What's in store for us today?
Hey, Edwin, happy Friday. We're going to be talking about creating a well-managed secure device while providing an out-of-the-box experience and how that can be quite challenging. First, we'll talk about the evolution of the work infrastructure, why there was a need to address the new work dynamic. Next, we'll discuss the benefits of modern management and the positive impact of user experience. And lastly, we'll talk about the journey to modernization and what this actually looks like. Then we'll wrap it up with some Q&A today on FSI Fridays.
You said it, Joe Hansen. Looking forward to making everyone's lives a little more enjoyable with this one. For those of you watching live or on YouTube, as a quick reminder, we'll be spending around 30 minutes on today's topic and leave the last 10 to 15 minutes to address any burning questions. So please use the Q&A window and we'll monitor for questions during the presentation. If you're watching the recording, feel free to use the comments below to ask your questions. So let's go ahead and get started and meet the presenter for today. We are honored to be joined by our Modern Work Global Black Belt, Jason Cohen. So, Jason, thanks for being on the show today. Can you let us know and the audience what you're up to at Microsoft? I took karate, but I never quite made it to black belt.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's good to meet everybody. I'm part of the GBB team, Global Black Belt team. It's a part of Microsoft Managed Desktop.
Great to have you on today, Jason. Before we get started, I hear you usually try not to take the last flight out on the evening, no matter where you're going. What's that all about?
Yeah, I was once going to a sales kickoff, a Sunday night flight. I was rushing through the airport for a Sunday night football game, blast through security, get to the bar, need a drink, want to watch the game, and lo and behold, I get on the plane and realize, oh wow, my bag was actually left at security. So I get off the plane, go to security, go through the whole debacle of getting my bag and ID and the process, and have to take the next flight. Thank goodness there was a next flight. Otherwise, I would have been in a world of problems.
Yeah, Jason, I'm kind of jealous. I should have probably learned from you. I remember once I fell asleep at the gate for a red eye, and no one figured to wake me up as people were boarding. I woke up around like 3 a.m. and I had to realize, I realized I had to wait till the next morning, fly back to the East Coast. So strange how I almost missed traveling, but I digress. So Jason, when we think about FSI customers, their experience with work devices tends to be nothing like their home devices. Work devices can be considered slow, bogged down with performance issues, but then they use their home device and it seems to be much more snappy. So I heard Microsoft and our CEO, Satya Nadella, did a listening tour a while back. Can you tell us how we got to where we are today with Microsoft Managed Desktop and what this really means?
Yeah, certainly. Our executive team, Satya, Rajesh, Brad Anderson, they do these kind of annual listening tours globally with our, big strategic customers. And it really was, kind of paramount during one of these trips a few years ago was, the desktop management experience is a real burden. It's a bear for our customers. Either I hire a big, IT robust team to go and sort of take this, challenge and burden on, right? Or do I outsource it? And really, does that experience really become more of an underwhelming experience as we think about it? The Cohen term, right, of your mess for less. And so as we really think about, how we could go and invest in this space, we wanted to do some really unique things to kind of help customers and really kind of flip the notion of what desktop management is really on its head. And I think we've accomplished that within MMD, and I'm excited to talk to everyone about it today.
Jason, COVID has been extremely impactful to businesses worldwide, especially in financial services. Now that we've moved from the model of people working in the office to their homes, or now virtually anywhere, can you describe the impact we've seen with our financial services customers?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, look, all up, right? The goal of endpoint management at the end of the day is to empower users with data and applications that they need to be productive, right? While just protecting all that data from unauthorized access. And as you think about like this new COVID world and a work from home, infrastructure is just creating this new host of IT challenges in delivering more of a secure, productive experience. Just think about like the home experience itself. Home networks aren't typically designed for everyone to be home at the same time, and they don't necessarily, organizations have a line of sight for these folks to have a domain controller, or how am I thinking about users access resources in the scenario? Is it a VPN or is it another method? Like there's a lot that really you have to think about, and then you kind of move to like the data side of this, right? Are users emailing or Dropboxing or whatever else, otherwise just transferring files to use personal devices for work or to get around some of the limitations that the domain joined work machine would have? I'll tell you, like, we're seeing headlines about hackers kind of exploiting this mass migration to remote work, including targeting home Wi-Fi routers to gain access to corporate data. So certainly some interesting challenges. Could even think to like the logistics of remote device provisioning or updates in general. How do you manage contactless updates outside that corporate environment? Think about device provisioning, policy customization, app deployment, reporting, antivirus, labeling, data protection. Like it's a whole list of things you have to think about. And I'll tell you, I talk with organizations and they're just deferring feature patching, quality updates, which is just going to increase that vulnerability to a data breach. It's also leaving money on the table, really, if you think about the productivity and collaboration enhancements that most organizations have paid for, but might not have maybe fully deployed. And then that sort of brings me to the tool side of this, right? Where, let's face it, like the workplace now has, that device has totally replaced the workplace. Like if I think about the device that's in my hands here, and I don't want to shake my device on camera here, like it's replaced my at work experience. If you think about an employee, like that experience where I'm taking place in an office with a cafe, maybe a gym, hallway conversations, conference rooms, that device now has become the entire conduit for every part of the employee experience. How a user is going to feel about the workplace technology really now has just this higher significance on how you feel about the work, their impact, the value to the org. And, really like that new reality, it's going to increase the organization's dependencies on productivity and collaboration tools, Teams, OneDrive, all up collaboration. And, you got to think about your users. Like they have this high expectation for device performance and responsiveness over VPN or whatever else. They're used to that consumer experience. Now it's like they have that at home when they're in the enterprise, So there's a lot to think about for this organization as we move into this new world.
Yeah, Jason, you make a really good point, right? So for users to work at home, there's a lot involved in the background to get this ready. Hardening the machine and enforcing policies to adhere to compliance requirements is totally top of mind. So like you said, there's a whole list of things to think about compared to a home device. Can we talk about how this might negatively impact users?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is one of the biggest things here and why we built out the managed desktop experience, which I'll talk about, right? Change is going to introduce these big experience issues. And so now you think about these organizations that are facing this increased risk of a data breach, and now they're deploying security agents or whatever else to combat this. But these agents in the background, this is really what affects the device performance and adding the dependencies on vendors to really maintain that uptime. But that, just like take away the security agent for a second, you're adding a whole new products, right? Your VPNs, third-party disk encryption, other EDR tools, credential provider, proxies, like this just goes on, right? And so now you've got this lag in really the experience that the users want, which frankly just creates this exponential frustration. And so, if it's not right to have, kind of this, boot to that device, go get the coffee, like that's what you want to get away from, right? That traditional experience that frankly most users in a historical enterprise know. We want to totally get rid of that. And think about remote work, like this means that again, that entire workplace is delivered by that work device. That hallway conversation is gone, right? The conference room is whiteboarding, collaboration, like all that is gone now. And how are you doing those experiences on your device? Do you have the best experience there to do it? Look, these new tools and digital processes, this just changes the way teams function. And so if you think about, this change, it requires training, troubleshooting. It's now revealing all these gaps in the system that, you used to, working with. Like all this means that trouble tickets, greater dependency on IT for support. But, that remote troubleshooting can be extremely frustrating experience, as we know. And so much of that user productivity just evaporates, right? When a support agent, remotes into their device to diagnose whatever problem it is. And so now our users are hesitant, right? They may just fear some of that remote troubleshooting because it's just going to take away their workday and disrupt whatever else is going on. And so that's really this kind of, big struggle at the moment.
Jason, let's wait a second. That topic of our financial services customers and their IT is now having to do IT remotely. Before you could go and walk into the office and hand your machine to your IT help desk at a specific place. Now they're having to do that remote troubleshooting or send them a device. And I want to double click on that for a little bit. How is IT feeling more burdened trying to fix all of these user issues because they got to do it at remotely from their home? And what are those implications to IT?
100%. Yeah. I mean, so if you take like a recent survey, right, IT professionals, 81% said that COVID put a significant technology strain on the business, and 61% feel more pressure than ever. So like, let's just take a step back, right? Let's think about really those implications, right? So remote work is not just for senior leaders anymore, right? This is, not just knowledge workers, like this is everybody. This is line workers, like at this point. So now this is a new challenge in communicating with and empowering this broader user base with training, support, and at the end of the day, a device that works as expected, right? And so now you think this whole user base, the entire org, has this increased dependency on that performance. This is the conduit for all employee experience, productivity, collaboration, right? We talk about the whiteboarding, conference room, hallways, all that is gone. And so now the sense of accomplishment and pride in the contribution to whatever the mission is, right? To say nothing on the bottom line of impact of revenue or profitability or shareholder confidence and so forth, right? It's all on the device experience. So now you're getting more pressure to frankly just do more with less. And that impact of lost productivity at this point now actually becomes greater, especially now as you're thinking about kind of this crisis-related furloughs, downsizing, et cetera. So, look, new threats at this point mean increasing exposure. And so you need to keep devices up to date and secure. And I think that's at the root of all this. But that's really hard to do in a contactless environment. So I think, right, a number of my customers, they used to have on-prem AV detection and response, DLP solutions where, endpoints for those servers were really only exposed on the internal network. And with them really now place reliance and strain on the VPN to provide access to those endpoints. So if those didn't come or connect to the VPN, then those security teams were blind to really what was going on with the device until the next checked in. And so, the biggest thing in here, right, in these times of just economic uncertainty, most IT organizations, frankly, at this point, they're not adding resources to expand capacity to enhance, the increased workload. But ironically, like that's exactly where the IT innovation could truly help the business reinvent itself. Digital tools, processes, like these things are going to solve the challenges, right? And so this can include like moving on-prem client server apps to understand, updated versions of those apps that work in a browser over the internet with no requirement for a VPN. Think about Teams that allows easier, connectivity to tools and collaborate and be productive. So that's where we're seeing things now change is I have to actually make those, increased investments to go and combat this at a time when that's even harder to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's spot on. That totally resonates with definitely one of my customers. They recently sent 12,000 remote call center information workers to work from home when they were used to, being in person. They had, IT help right there. They've never had the VPN in as you're talking. So, there's a lot of pivoting that needed to happen. So, Jason, you talked about IT innovation helping IT reinvent itself. Can you talk about how modern management has shown to be more beneficial to the organization as a whole?
Yeah, certainly. Look, the good news, modern management, it scales. IT bandwidth drives down the endpoint management, kind of cost all up. Certainly a confidence booster in terms of device security for organizations and just user satisfaction at the end of the day, right? So we actually went out and we asked Forrester to study the experiences of the MMD customers. Describe that total economic kind of impact, right? For this composite customer moving from an on-prem to more of an infrastructure managed by our MMD team. The full report, you can actually go get it for folks that are listening in or listening after, aka.ms/MMD impact. Definitely read it, right, to understand kind of Forrester's methodology and the assumptions behind the kind of customer profile here. But look, the gist is this. Forrester found that a 5,000 seat organization, they're going to experience there's a lot of benefits here. Okay, let's just go through some of them. And I'm actually going to kind of just quote from the executive summary here. 5 minutes reclaimed per user per day in improved performance and stability of end user devices. Think about that for a second, right? 5 minutes reclaimed per day, faster boot times, fewer crashes, and faster performance of those devices managed by an MMD, Microsoft Managed Desktop enabled user. They're way more productive than they were, on the previous device. 50% fewer IT FTE hours were required to actually maintain the IT infrastructure by relying on Microsoft's update management services. You're always staying up to date. It's 24/7 security monitoring and remediation. We'll talk about kind of the in-depth nature of MMD here shortly, right? But 90% less time required to set up an end user. And that's huge if you think about the burden, on IT today. Here's some of the cost savings that Forrester described. A savings of $4.2 million by consolidating endpoint management and security infrastructure, right? 35% reduction in help desk calls. That's huge, 35% reduction, right? Think about, kind of where your users are today inside your organization and how much this may actually be such a great impact. A savings of $313,000 in actual time to provision and deploy those end users. And, while Forrester, the methodology doesn't truly quantify the benefits, they didn't want to ignore, what customers were actually reporting as impactful to the business, right? So there was this increased confidence in the security of the environments. I touched on that a little bit earlier, where the interviewees believed that moving to MMD actually increased their endpoint protection, reducing the risk of a security breach. There was also an improved employee experience, right? Forrester reported that, this improved experience leads to a few things, and I think we all understand these, but better work performance, higher discretionary effort, lower turnover, and a reduced recruiting cost, right? I want to talk about a few of these things in more detail, but certainly a ton of great benefits here realized.
Jason, the modern management benefits are real, and you just covered them with some of those stats and can be seen with real dollars and time saved. But let's double down and talk about the impact of a great user experience. I've heard something like 4 out of 5 millennials make a decision on where they work based off of the hardware and the experience that's provided by an organization. And then 3 out of 4 leave an organization if that experience isn't great. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, so true, right? And look, as I said earlier, the Forrester study, it wasn't designed to find metrics around the business impact of a device, user experience, but it's okay, right? We still have data there as well. And so Qualtrics, it's another researcher that's built really the entire platform to study and measure employee engagement and sentiment. I don't know if you ever taken a corporate job satisfaction survey. It was probably conducted by Qualtrics. We actually went out and asked them to study a couple of our early customers and really compare the MMD experience to how they felt on their traditional managed desktop. And the Qualtrics study was very revealing to our team. Customers saw a 15% increase in employee engagement, right? A 31% improvement in their sense of being effective at their job, right? 59% accelerated employee impact. That's huge, right? It's probably one of my favorite metrics and stats here. 121% improvement in the employee's rating of their employer and brand perception, right? As we talk about the attracting and retaining of talent, we talk about the millennials, and we talk about just the high turnover rates and what that costs to an organization. 121% improvement in the employees' ratings, right? And a 74% difference in would users recommend that PC experience? This really just speaks to kind of the viral demand that I'm going to talk about later. So remember that 74-point difference. But last one here, 80% increase in employees who feel that they have more flexibility at work, right? And that's really something to think about. We know in IT that, how happy, a user means, fewer trouble tickets, less time to react to problems that crop up. But, in a time of belt tightening here, right? It's easy for an organization to say, all right, who cares about the experience? I got to protect the data, right? Users are home, I got to protect data. But look, together, these two studies, I think they paint a really clear picture that the Microsoft Managed Desktop customers actually can give a fantastic experience on the device that do stay protected. And in so doing, really help IT just reclaim the bandwidth to go solve these more higher value strategic challenges that at the end of the day really do improve the core business.
I mean, Jason, that resonates with me, right? Being a user, I love when I can just turn on the device and it works. I don't have to, reboot to have a fresh start. So we've talked about how Microsoft listened to our customers, why this is, why this initiative is born. You talked about this great user experience, which led to improvement in effectiveness in their job, increased engagement. Let's level set with the audience. So I have to ask, what exactly is MMD? Yeah. What are financial organizations ultimately buying into? And put it another way, why should financial organizations invest in this?
Yeah, no, great question. Look, and let's just get right into it. Microsoft Managed Desktop was built to solve a lot of the challenges that, frankly, COVID has brought to light. And I think we've been preaching a lot of these challenges for a long time as customers move to more of a modern state and as customers move to, more of this, zero trust architecture. But that's here now, right? That evolution has really changed overnight. And so, MMD was, as we talk about Satya on this listening tour with Brad and our executive team, really wanted to go and flip the model on its head of what traditional desktop management was. And as we think about, I mentioned earlier, either I do this with a great team of my IT pros, or I outsource this with the your mess for less Cohen term. We want to do three things in MMD, right? Ultimately, and this is a modern approach, right? We want to, number one, give our users the absolute best experience. And you see some of the metrics there on the left. These are some of the metrics we're striving for. And I'll talk about how we get there in a second. But, user experience is one thing. It's certainly paramount in MMD. We want to give that great experience. Like gone would be the days of an organization maybe being able to give me a device on my first day. If I do get a device, is it a big, bulky kind of brick machine? Is it reliable? Is it performant? Am I getting the consumer-like experience at work? We want that to be, right? We want that to exist. And that's what happens in this MMD world. And so number one, user experience. Number two, security, right? As we think about, hey, if Microsoft has the ability to go manage this all-up experience and manage this for IT, we've got to deliver on security, and we've got to deliver expert security. And we know we can do that, right? We have, as a part of our intelligent security graph, trillions of signals of telemetry that come in every day. We've got a team of almost like 3,000 folks as a part of our security operations center globally, partnering with our CDOC and all the agencies all over the world. And if anyone's been on a tour or been up to Redmond for an executive briefing, you may have gone through our CDOC or our digital crimes unit. I mean, the amount of telemetry and data that we have is truly unmatched, and we want to harness all of that for our customers. And I'll talk about that here momentarily. And the third piece of this is really, look, at the end of the day, we heard from our customers, I don't want to be in this business, right? Like, this is a commodity activity at this point. Not to say that MMD is going to take over all desktop management. We will talk about some of those pieces, but we're going to take over a lot. And a lot of it is the commodity activities that you don't want to be in the business in anymore. You have so many more higher value things to go and tackle. And so when we talk about this being a modern journey and a modern approach to the managed desktop offering, I want to really let the folks here understand what this means. As I talk with my customers and we talk about modern, what I hear are usually a handful of things. Number one, I want to get to Intune management, right? I want to be cloud native from a management perspective. I don't want to have, the reliance on my on-prem, infrastructure to use SCCM as an example. Like, I want to move from SCCM to cloud native Intune. As a part of that, I really, really want to use autopilot. Like, that's on my modern journey here. And as we think about autopilot, if you're not familiar, like, this is the automation of the, onboarding experience for a customer. And truly a great set of technology or piece of technology, but it's hard for our customers to get there, right? Our customers either do this on their own, they might pay a partner to help them. This is a modern approach and journey. As a part of MMD, we actually take that on for you, right? So now you think about, okay, I want to get to Intune, I want to get to autopilot. I definitely want to get to a zero trust architecture. Like, that's foremost here, especially in a world of COVID. I want to make sure as a part of that, all my conditional access policies are set up properly. These are things we do natively out of the box in MMD. And so what will happen here in a world of MMD is you as an organization would go to your reseller or an OEM directly, and you continue to buy your devices like you do today. The devices we have are HP, Dell, Lenovo, and of course our Surface line. And what you would do is you'd procure that device, and that device will come imaged, asset tagged, and autopilot registered. And so if it's my first day at the organization, let's call it Monday, maybe I got my device over the weekend, I would open up my device out of the box. I would go through that out of box experience, right? So That would be my, keyboard layout, language setting, Wi-Fi, and hey, welcome to Contoso. Put in my credentials that I was given, and I'm in. And I'm in with a full Office 365 Pro Plus and Windows 10 experience, and that's actually embedded in, so I didn't have to download that right off the jump. At this point now, Autopilot is kicked in. I've got all my applications streaming down to me as a part of this experience, my certificate, profile, VPN, etc. So I've got everything that I would need, having never had to go to the office, never talked to IT. I didn't have to do anything, right? I just opened up my device and got this really great consumer-like experience in the enterprise. And the beauty here is that Microsoft, our MMD engineering team, has helped you build out your Autopilot instance, help you with your transition to Intune from an SCCM. We have helped modernize you, and as we heard from our customers, really help expedite the technology roadmap for our customers. So now, let's just take a step back. I'm a new user. I got a sleek, performant, great device, great experience out of the box. It's, I'm new to the organization, and I'm happy, right? I feel like my organization thinks very highly of me now. I got this great device and a great experience off the jump. I didn't have to wait for a device or go back in to go have an app installed, right? Well, now the run state of that means I'm evergreen. I'm used to this at home, but I get all the latest and greatest in the enterprise now. And from the IT perspective, if we kind of flip this around, it now means that Microsoft helps take over for the organization that device configuration, the ever-changing security baseline, the OS upgrades, patching, quality updates within Office. These are things now that we take over on behalf of the organization, and we talk about these being some commodity activities. Now let Microsoft go and manage this for you. We write the code to this. I think we're best suited to help manage this on your behalf. And so we actually do this with a team of blue badge Microsoft employees, kind of two separate ends here. One is an operations team, and that team's going to look at device health, performance. Are we getting kind of the metrics on the left? And applications, both proactively and reactively. We're going to be looking for problems that are occurring, any type of application failures. It's our job to be the first line of remediation and response, oftentimes working with your IT teams, but it's our job to remediate and fix. And we've done things around proposing code changes, maybe doing a shim to the OS, pushing on a third party to fix something. Our team is uniquely in a spot up in Redmond, right, where we sit next to the Windows team and the Office team. And so we have this great relationship to going and fixing problems for our MMD customers in a really expedited fashion. And the second piece of this is the security side. And I touched on it earlier, Microsoft invests $1 billion a year in security. It's a big investment, right? We have a lot of telemetry and data, position all this back to our customers. And so as a part of the onboarding experience in MMD, this is, and I'll talk about some of the modern, pieces of what makes an MMD machine, but part of this is Defender ATP. And it's those logs that are actually fed up to our SOC, and our SOC monitors on behalf of the customer. So, a lot more that we could talk about in detail on the SOC piece, but for all intents and purposes, as a part of MMD, you have the Microsoft Global SOC monitoring your machines. It's extremely powerful for our customers as an extra layer of added security.
So Jason, I love the Autopilot experience. I actually got a Surface Book 3 about a month ago, and it came shipped to my house. I opened it up, I signed in, and I was ready to go. All my updates, all my apps, Teams, everything ready to go. It was a fantastic user experience. So I know a question that our financial services customers are probably thinking right now. You're telling me to go evergreen. How does that work? It's great that Microsoft manages these updates, but what if something that Microsoft does from an update breaks an internal app? Is there a need to test first? How does MMD maybe help here? I'm sure folks watching may be hesitant if this might cause issues when Microsoft wants to push an update.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It all stems back to our operations team and the telemetry and data that we have, right? And so it's not just the telemetry across all the MMD users, it's the telemetry across all of our commercial business, right? And so, we have 1 billion Windows PCs out in market. As we push updates, we see what's happening, right? And so if you take a look at kind of the different type of updates here, let's just take patching, quality updates. These are going to be every week, right? Patch Tuesday. And as a part of this, right, Windows update, you're going to get the firmware, BIOS updates, driver. We actually have about 95% of organizations in MMD patched in the first 9 days. Part of the device itself also, we have some requirements on the devices, right? And if for folks listening in, if you want to check out our device list, that's aka.ms/MMD devices. We're also moving to our secure core list of our OEMs across HP, Dell, Lenovo. Of course, we have our Surface line as a part of this program. But part of the device requirement, TPM 2.0 from a security perspective, part of this also is to have modern standby. And so what that means is, if my users are on vacation and they throw the laptop in a bag, they're gone for a few weeks, that is still collecting those updates. And when the user logs back in, they're asked to go and actually do a reset of that device. They have a given time frame. You can push those as a part of the standard working hours. You can push those to be after hours. But we see 95% of organizations patched in the first 9 days. When it comes to the big kind of feature releases and Windows releases, these are a bit different. You see our test first and fast and broad rings. We obviously like to leverage a ring model, so it's not as if we're pushing an update to the entire organization day one. We strive for 90 days, right? You see kind of test, and then with first, fast, and broad ring, you see the 30 kind of day increments. We try to have a 90-day window. I'll be transparent. We've had some releases that maybe didn't go as planned. If we think about like an 1809, that actually didn't reach an enterprise, MMD user. Those didn't actually go off until about 5-ish, 6 months post, release. And so what we do is we work out kind of all these things through the commercial business. We see what's happening. We don't push these off until we know that these are actually going to be a bit more fixed and ready for our organizations. But we definitely go through these ring models in your organization. And so as a part of this, onboarding, we set up and say, hey, we'd like to have X amount of users in each of the rings. Certainly something that every organization will want to customize.
Based on what you've been telling me, I mean, I'm pretty bought in here. I'm sure IT will appreciate being able to focus on the important pieces of their deployment. But you're talking about this modernization journey. What does that really mean? And it sounds like there's a lot involved here as well. So just want to make sure we have a time check. We have about 10 minutes remaining, but let's talk about getting that through that modernization journey.
Sure. I mean, look, the beautiful thing about MMD is we help our customers get modern, and really expedite that technology roadmap. We talk about zero trust. We talk about Intune, autopilot, leveraging Windows Hello for Business. Like, there's a lot that goes into this, but it doesn't just accelerate the journey to modern, but more importantly, when you get to MMD, you stay modern, right? And that journey starts with the work you're already doing, app updates, device updates, network readiness, but we bring in the tools, the resources, the engineering teams to help support you get there faster. Look, we take on that management of policy and configuration into your tenant. So, we work to ensure that there is no configuration that would kind of conflict with ours. I also spend time working with our customers on, that network readiness. Like, think about it, right? The device to Intune, Azure AD, Defender ATP, and other required, kind of points here. Are there SSL inspections in the way? Like, what about the application environment? Are there on-prem web apps that need to, publish out via Azure AD, app proxy, or conditional access? Is a per app or full split tunnel, VPN needed for a user? There's a lot that goes into this, and we help our users and organizations moving to MMD with all those as a part of our readiness with our engineering teams to help you expedite that.
Yeah, so we pulled up the slide here to compare and contrast what that truly means. And if I'm an IT, I want to know kind of what the differences are. As part of this update process, kind of where is the balance of control? Where does Microsoft own it versus the customers own it? And I think the slide talks to it. Do you want to just spend just a few moments here talking about this?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think this paints kind of that modernization journey from that classic IT and where our customers are today to MMD, right? I mean, GPOs become MDM policies, right? You're moving to a Windows update for business. Like, this is where our customers ultimately want to get to, right? Domain joined machines become Azure AD joined machines. Like, this is the roadmap I've talked about at length here. We certainly expedite it, and it's just a very clear kind of picture of where this journey really evolves into moving to MMD.
Yeah, this chart looks great. I love being able to compare things. This looks pretty streamlined, but where are the speed bumps? Because it sounds like there's plenty of variables here to get modern. Is it easy? And there's a lot of complexity in many of our FSI customers' environments. So how does this journey affect the timeline of deployment? And what does this journey actually look like for an organization like ours?
Yeah, it's a great question. There can be a lot, right? Customers moving to Office 365, right? We love to have customers that are sort of in, right, with Exchange Online and OneDrive to create this statelessness of the user experience on the device. we have some requirements around this, right? Things around, making sure you're on Windows 10, you're able to be on Office 365 Pro Plus. We have requirements around the security stack you're going to use. Like, we have a very hard line in the sand in this case of Defender ATP. We're going to keep you evergreen. We're going to take on this kind of management and security of the device. We have to use our EDR solution, Defender ATP. So like when this device gets launched as an MMD device, it's Azure AD joined, it's Intune managed. It has the native Defender the native Windows 10 security capabilities, right? So think about BitLocker and Secure Boot. Then sits Defender ATP on top of that. And so certainly, as we think about some of the requirements in this modern approach, love to have our users be on Windows Hello for Business. Is there a PKI infrastructure that needs to be set up? What about certificates? What about an NDES implementation? So there's some things that we go through as a part of the process with our customers to kind of look at where they are today and how feasible it is to get to MMD. Maybe, we can move there tomorrow, or maybe it's, we need to think about maybe these 1 or 2 projects that Microsoft engineering team can help us, or through our partners can help us get to be able to realize the value of MMD as fast as possible.
Jason, I think I'm really starting to get it. I see the value of MMD. It's easy to talk the talk, but it's harder to walk the walk. Can you give me an example of where we're doing this with a big financial services organization? I know we have a great example here.
Yeah, look, we've got a number of financial organizations on MMD and deploying. It's great to see. I think the number one best case study, and if anyone's followed the service, it's Lloyd's Bank. Lloyd's kind of went to market with us and has been really the anchor for us, and just a phenomenal case study and really transition and transformation for our customer. Lloyd's went from a predominantly Windows 7, still migrating to Windows 10 Business, thinking about their Office 365 and that journey to MMD, right? And saying, I don't want to be in the business of managing all of this. Lloyd's went from, some 5, 6, 7 to even 10-minute boot times down to sub 30 seconds, right? And so they've made this journey. They're deploying to all their users globally. And as we think about, a big multinational, highly regulated business, it's great to see them choosing MMD as that, security pane, as that, device management, for IT, and choosing to go all in with us. It's an interesting journey, right? Lloyd started with, I believe, like over 40 agents, on their devices, down to less than 5, right? And so as we think about this journey for a financial services customer who at times has probably bought some of the best of breed products, and to no fault, right? It's the great decision at the time. Now the decision is, how do I think about modern? How do I think about the best employee experience? Being able to move to a more built-in instead of bolted-on experience through MMD has certainly been a great path for our financial service customers.
This is amazing, Jason. And how can customers get started with this? We've got a link in here to share, but you want to touch on this for a quick second?
Yeah, I mean, I think, let's reach out to your account teams. We have a team of our GBB teams that's out in the field working with customers like yourself. So happy to get engaged with anyone. I think A, it's reaching out to the account teams, but B, look, we've got all the prereqs, readiness tools, application assessments, device requirement and standards, our total economic impact studies out there. So I think providing some of the information for folks to go off and maybe do some of their research and understand if this may be a fit for their organization. And if you think it is, or you have more questions, certainly please reach out to your account teams and get to either me or some of my counterparts that are more than happy to work with you across the world.
Jason, thank you so much for sharing your time and perspective. I'm positive our viewers have learned a wealth of valuable information. So what we learned today is there's a lot that goes into ensuring a device is secure and compliant while maintaining that great user experience. It isn't easy. Microsoft Managed Desktop is a great complement to the way IT organizations can evolve towards that journey to modern management. We also heard about how a financial institution, a large one, was able to reduce the burden on IT, transform and provide an enjoyable and end user experience, increasing their productivity. If you're interested in starting the journey, or if you're in the middle of it and would like some guidance, please reach out to your account teams and we can schedule an envisioning session or a follow-up. Really great stuff. Johansson, let's go ahead and move to Q&A. I think we have 4 minutes remaining. What are some of our viewers asking?
I think we've got a question in here just around how customers can take advantage of these capabilities with Microsoft. So, Jason, you talked about the GBBs being able to help here. What's this journey like, and how long does it take to implement something like this?
Yeah, look, it's very dependent on a customer's organization, their environment, right? As I think about a customer that came to us at the beginning of COVID, this was very, very early COVID as things were starting to shut down. We had a customer come to us and say, listen, I'm going 5,000 users. We're going totally remote in 6 weeks. In the next 6 weeks, I need to have everyone completely remote. And we don't have a means to do this today. We need MMD. I know we've had conversations in the past. Please refresh us on these. I think this could be a path forward. So first conversation to 6 weeks, we had 5,000 users over to MMD, right? And so it's very dependent on the user's environment, right? Are you ready to go today? Maybe you are ready to go, but not in a fully, MMD-like state. So maybe, you know what, instead of using Hello for Business, you are going to use your username and password as we build out that PKI environment. Or, there are means to get to MMD and see the full value of this without maybe having the most seamless user experience. So there are certainly steps in a journey to help getting you to MMD. We love to have the full experience, from day one, but totally understand the modernization journey doesn't happen overnight. And so I think it's just dependent on your environment, but would love to chat more.
Thanks, Jason. So it looks like we're out of time. Thanks again for attending, watching live or watching over YouTube. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat window or the comment section below if you're watching the recording. If you haven't already, be sure to register for FSI notifications and invites by visiting aka.ms FSI Fridays. We're also open to feedback, so please send us your comments and suggestions. Be sure to catch the previous recordings on our YouTube channel, aka.ms/FSI Fridays recap, where you can also post any follow-up questions that weren't covered today. And don't forget to subscribe and like this video. So Evan, we're moving quickly into October with 5 amazing topics. Why don't you give an audience a preview of what's happening next month?
Oh, absolutely. I am thrilled about October. We have 5 sessions coming up. So, and these are a number of awesome topics. Next week on October 2, join Matthew Seckel as he talks about the purpose and profit looking through the lens of ESG. October 9, Calvin Alvarez will discuss the benefits of low-code solutions that can provide flexibility for financial organizations. Tyler Cooper, one of our top identity experts, will talk about secure remote work on October 16, and lined up on October 23, our workplace intelligence black belt, Cohen and Thomas will talk about empowering your organization to measure and drive change. And finally, on October 30, one of my favorite topics, I know same thing with you, Johansson, a lot of people have these Surface Duos. I'm really looking forward to it. We have our product managers lined up to talk about Surface, including the Duo, and how it can work in financial organizations. You will not want to miss it. Thanks, and see you next time on FSI Fridays.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.